Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report, Monday's edition, broadcasting from South Florida. Happy to welcome in 2022. Happy to have you with us today. Listen, I got to tell you something, folks. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday season. It was certainly great here in South Florida, beautiful weather, and I can't say the same about that for all parts of the country from everybody I've been speaking to. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. But again, I wish everybody a happy 2022, and hopefully we can have a better 2022 as a country than we did in 2021. Anyhow, our headline today is the Democrats learned nothing in 2021, and 2022 looks worse for them. You know, you would think that a party that was looking at the polls, understanding that their policies are not popular with the American people, would make changes. But folks, that does not appear to be the case, as evidence, and then this was telegraphed towards the end of the year. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, Senate Majority Leader, has signaled that he will try to change the filibuster rule to advance this voting rights legislation in an effort, folks, to federalize election laws. Now, let me explain to you what this is really about. It's really about the Democrats continuing to lie to their base. I mean, it's just patently false to make claims that the states that are enacting enhanced security systems to ensure the integrity of our elections are doing things to prevent Black people and brown people from voting. It's the most insane, racist argument I think I've ever heard in politics, but this is par for the course for the Democrats, of course. So why are they doing this? Well, everything they tried to do on the Build Back Better bill, it failed. They're down in the polls. They look like they're going to lose a whopping 40 plus seats in the House. You know, inflation is still high. The problems that were with us in 2021 didn't disappear because we turned the clock on 2022. They're still there. But the Democrats have to have a pivot issue, one that will try to get their base rallied. And so that's why Schumer's pushing this. What doesn't make any sense, and I don't know if they're just tone deaf or if they're looking to run into a fight they know they're going to lose, both Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have signaled they want no part of changing the filibuster rules. And I guess it's the old Democratic arm twisting that they thought would work on Manchin that they think they're going to get it through again. McConnell has warned Schumer time and time again, do not tinker with this. You know, we mentioned the passing of Harry Reid last week. Reid was the last Senate Majority Leader to alter the rules for the filibuster, and McConnell warned him that if you do this, it will come back to haunt you. Well, it did, and Donald Trump ended up nominating and getting approved 3 Supreme Court conservative justices. Had Harry Reid not changed the filibuster rules to affect nominees to the Supreme Court, or excuse me, to the lower courts, then this may never have come up. You may not have had these 3 people approved. But McConnell warned him, he didn't do it. And then obviously when the Republicans were in charge, they took it to the next level. Same thing's going to happen again. Again, if they don't preserve the filibuster rights, which so far Manchin and Sinema have steadfastly said they're going to support, then obviously in 2022, when Republicans take back the United States Senate, which all polling indicates is going to happen, those rules will get changed back, and then Republicans can declare warfare on Democrats. Folks, the Democrats used the filibuster against Trump and his policies when it was to their advantage. You never heard Republicans threatening to do away with the filibuster. Sure, Trump was asking McConnell to change the rules to pass his agenda, but to his credit, McConnell didn't fall for the bait. He didn't do it. But the Democrats are so power lustful, then they have such a radical left base, and they know that if they don't push this garbage, then it's going to create a problem for them. You have a situation where these far left-wing radicals are pushing for something called voting rights. Folks, what they're basically trying to do is preserve voting without an ID. They want to do ballot harvesting. They want to federalize the elections. They want to allow more of these coronavirus laws that went in place in 2020 to stay in place permanently. Why? It allows them to cheat, basically is what it does. Now, these states have passed election law enhancements to protect voter integrity. You don't see anybody in Florida clamoring against these new state laws, or Texas, or some of the other states. No, it's Washington, D.C. Democrats. Why? Because they're nervous, and they think that with these enhanced security things, such as voter ID, such as making sure the voter rolls are cleansed, such as no ballot harvesting, and other laws put into place by the states. You know, the Constitution specifically says states are to handle the elections, not the federal government. And if either one of these bills were ever passed, I guarantee, folks, that you would see it challenged in court. It would go all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Democrats would lose again, because voting rights are handled by the states and not the federal government. We do not want to see, under any circumstance, federalization of our elections. You think it was bad in 2020. You pass something like this monstrosity, federalize the election, you're going to see holy hell break out in this country across many, many states. Therefore, I don't think anything's going to happen with this. But you know, you never know what's going to happen when these Democrats get together. Manchin withstood the pressure and effectively killed Build Back Better last year. Now Schumer's going to give it another crack under a different set of guidelines. Maybe they'll strip out a bunch of stuff Manchin doesn't like, but it's the same type thing. You know, we've got to endure these reckless Democrats for at least another 10 months until we have the elections. They're hell-bent and determined to pass their radical ideas, and this is not what the American people want, which, again, it further explains to you folks why these Democrats are sitting here with these low approval ratings and why Biden is sitting here somewhere 36 to 40%. You know, a good example, you know, instead of addressing the problems that the people care about, here Schumer is going to push this election bill. He's not getting pressure from most Americans. Most Americans feel very comfortable. They have no problem voting. An overwhelming majority. And you know, when you have 80% of African Americans and Hispanics saying they support voter ID, it's not higher. Some polls suggest 85%. Why are they continuing to pursue this? Because they have nothing else. All their ideas are bad. They've done everything they can to hurt this country. And now we're in a situation where, what are they going to do? They're going to double down on stupid. We'll follow it for you, folks, but Schumer's basically set the middle of the month as a target date. I personally don't think Manchin and Sinema will go along with this, but anytime you start tinkering with the filibuster, there's risk at hand. I know we can rectify a lot of this after 2022 midterms, but we don't really want to have to go through it. Now, in other political news, there's early speculation that now that we've turned the calendar, that Pelosi will retire after the midterms. Well, why wouldn't she? Hell, she ought to retire now before the midterms. Democrats are going to lose the House. There's reports out there anywhere from 40 to 80 seats. That gives you an idea of how disgusted the American public is with the Democrats. Now, some of the names being floated. Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Okay, maybe. Khanna, he's a far left-wing radical from California. So there you go. Two lefties, far lefties. Now, centrist Democrats are going to push back on these two radicals. But given that the House is more controlled by the far left-wingers of their party, and given that in 2022 midterms this year, the Democrats will probably go further to the left. They're going to lose 40 to 80 seats. the base of the Democratic Party, they're going to lose African Americans, they're going to lose Hispanics. The base of the Democratic Party is now white liberal women and white African American women. That's the base of the Democratic Party. And they're going to move as far to the left as they can. So identifying people like Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries, those are the early front runners. There'll be other names that will come about. But don't you think it's interesting, folks, here, right in as we turn the page on the new year, they're already starting to float names. This is no surprise. We've talked about this before, about how Pelosi really says she's going to continue, but you and I both know. Does she really want to be presiding after they lose 40 to 60, 70, 80 seats? I doubt it. So it's not only Pelosi, but you look at the entire leadership team of the Democratic Party in the House. Steny Hoyer, he's pushing up there, 80 years old. Jim Clyburn, he's up there too, upper 70s. So it doesn't look like they're going to want to replace Pelosi with Steny Hoyer, who's number 2, or Jim Clyburn, number 3. Clyburn would be a pretty good choice, I think. But I don't think that, they want to turn the page probably on this leadership issue, which is why they're looking at some younger people, like Jeffries, and Khanna. We'll see if there's any other moderates that come. It won't be without a fight, folks, because the moderates don't want to see these Democrats pull any further to the left. Hell, they're already at a point now. It may come about, but bear in mind, this is not looking good for them heading into this year. All right, so we're broadcasting here from Florida. The state is open. Everybody's hearing about how cases are higher. And there's no question they are. They're higher all over the country. I think people are finally starting to realize, hey, we're just going to have to deal with this thing either by getting vaccinated, people that got it, getting herd immunity, whatever. But Florida's pretty wide open. So AOC was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Nothing wrong. I mean, she was dining at a restaurant on Miami Beach. No one at Miami, hardly anyone on Miami Beach is wearing a mask. I shouldn't say that's probably about 25% of them do, even when they're outdoors. But, something relatively harmless. Anyhow, her actions got picked up. Apparently, everybody in New York has to wear a mask everywhere they go. So rather than just brushing it off as a political, sideswipe by a Republican that criticized her for it, she had to escalate it. And she turned it into some weird, perverse thing where basically she referred to a sexual frustration tweet, basically accusing Republicans of not being able to date her, so they get frustrated with her. Well, I haven't met one Republican that heard a comment like that, ever heard anything such that. But, when you represent New York and you're down in Miami, and everybody in New York has to wear a mask, and people in Miami don't, and you're outdoor, was it the most appropriate scene? Probably not. Is it really an issue? I don't think so. I mean, I'm not going to, in this case, I'll sort of defend her action. Who cares whether she's in Miami having going out having dinner or having a drink on an outdoor patio? I don't think it's any big deal. Frankly, I don't think the Republicans who, sort of tweeted about it should have done that. I don't think it's that big a deal. But her response really got her in hot water with a lot of people on the Democratic side of the base. They're saying, hey, this gal actually got roasted over the comment. I mean, sort of the chutzpah of her to think everything revolves around her. I don't care how many million Twitter followers the young lady has. I mean, to think that making an obscure, crazy comment that even Democrats are calling weird didn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense. But like the political animal she is, she did get a lot of negative press about it. And I guess when you're in the holiday season and not a lot of people are talking about politics, she kept her name in the news by doing that. In the long term, is it a big deal? No, I'm just calling it basically escape from New York and an ongoing battle she has with Republicans. So in the big picture of things, this is like a blurb. It was sort of humorous, and I'll just sort of leave it at that. Let you make your own judgments on it. Now, in some of the humorous things that came out, you got to have a little levity when you're talking about politics over the holidays. I'm sure a lot of you were at holiday parties. most of you are probably Republicans or conservatives. And, when you had that weird Democratic uncle come in, and, he was wearing a mask in his car driving alone, and you looked at him a little strange. Or, he was talking about the virtues of Biden and how good he is, and you probably had to hold your breath. Anyhow, we'll sort of know that happened, and we'll just throw a little what I call humor into it. And I'm referring now to the climate, knuckleheads out there. All right, so in climate change news, and this is just funny as hell, Germany, shifting leftward. Okay, they've been a center-left country. They're moving left. All right, they come out. Basically, Germany's got a couple nuclear power plants, and they basically said they're going to phase out their nuclear power. Now, I can't think of anything dumber in my life than trying to do that. So what are the Germans going to do? Well, they're going to rely on natural gas to help power the economy until they get to a point where alternative energy, the greenies, can make it work on a cost-efficient basis. Now, you can do a tiny little bit of solar and wind and other forms, okay? But look, the reality is this: economies run on oil, gas, coal, nuclear energy, wind, solar, hydroelectric power, hydrogen, a lot of different sources. But the Germans, no. They're doing away with nuclear power. There are 2 nuclear power plants. And what are they going to do? They're going to rely on Russian natural gas. That really makes a whole hell of a lot of sense. Now, what did the French do? Just the opposite. They said, no, we're going full nuclear. We will rely on natural gas. We'll do what we have to do to supply the energy needs of our country. So the European Union's in a little bit of a bind. Who do they support? The Germans, who want to go full green, or the French, who are smart enough to take the idea, hey, we'll take power from wherever we can get it. We'll see how that one plays itself out. But what's humorous about it is, I don't know if you guys caught the story or not, but you had all these far left-wing radical kook climate activists, hanging out outside Joe Biden's, home in Delaware. And what was hilarious about it, and I'm just sort of laughing about it, all these climate change activists, they're out there. And what happens in the United States in winter? You get snowstorms that come up the East Coast. And I'll be damned, Washington, D.C. didn't get hit by a whopper, 10, 12 inches of snow. And all these climate change people are out there right before the snow hit, raising hell, protesting. I mean, these people need to get a life, don't you think? Go out, get a job, quit poaching off your parents. Just recognize that, the climate changes, the earth gets hotter, the earth gets colder. There's actually been enough evidence of global cooling versus global warming. Now, there's global warming going on. We're not denying that. But again, to make it seem like the humans have anything to do with it, can control it, that's nuts. It's cold in the Northeast. It's been cold out west. It's been cold in California. It's been cold. Seattle had 8, 10, 12 inches of snow. I mean, folks, in the winter, it gets cold in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's just humorous watching all these climate activists while they're freezing their ass off talking about, oh, we got to protect ourselves from the planet. We got to save the planet. Listen, go save the planet somewhere else. Quit wasting your time protesting. Go out, get a job, try to earn a living, and quit being a burden on society. That's what I think about it. Now, what has happened on it is, in fact, to shift a little bit of subject here, folks. The Omicron virus, it is affecting airlines severely. Another 2,300 flights got canceled today. You're getting out there ready to book a flight. You don't know if you're going to get on it or not. I mean, that's a lot of flights that got canceled, traveled, from basically Christmas Eve all through the holidays. Omicron wreaked havoc with it. Well, why? Well, they couldn't get pilots. They couldn't get flight attendants. A lot of people got in. The Omicron's a fairly infectious form of spreading, and these policies are in place, and it just caused a lot of cancellations. I mean, if people are testing positive, and I guess the CDC lowered the time frame from 10 days to 5 days, it's a tough nut out there. So again, politically speaking, this isn't good. I mean, when people have to get on flights. Those flights get canceled. Obviously, it's nobody's fault. But who gets the blame when this happens? Well, the administration gets the blame because they're the ones that said they'd have this thing under control. Folks, despite all the rhetoric that came out of the Democrats, we're going to control this thing, we're going to defeat it. No, you're not going to defeat this virus. One of two things is going to happen. It'll either run its course like every virus in the history of human history has been, or enough people will get vaccinated, booster, or we'll have some form of coronavirus, or we'll develop some type of herd immunity. I mean, that seems to be the reality. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to play one. I'm not advocating for anything. Everybody here at Schaftlein Report has been vaccinated. Some of us have been boosted. It doesn't mean anything. It's good that you got it, but again, even if you've had all that, you can still catch Omicron. A lot of people have. They call them breakthrough cases. So many of them are happening. I don't know if breakthrough is the appropriate word or not. But if you're traveling, you're going to have an issue, and it's not really stopping. So, speaking to you here from Florida, things are pretty normal. Some people bring masks in. You have to wear masks when you go inside buildings. It's not enforced 100%. Most people, I'd say it's half and half. Restaurants, maybe 20%. Outdoor venues, almost non-existent. Again, when you're inside, people are wearing them outside. It's all over the map here. But one thing that's happened down here in the state of Florida, you're not being mandated what to do. It's pretty much, if you want to wear a mask, you wear it. If you don't, you don't. Some places it is required on indoor settings. And again, despite what you're hearing nationally, I'm not seeing any issues. I don't see the people who wear the mask going up bothering the ones that don't. I don't see the ones that are not wearing them bothering the ones that are. So, the state does seem to be functioning pretty well. All right, look, we're coming up across in a couple days what the far left likes to refer to as 1/6. It's January 6th, folks. Okay, what are they going to do? They're trying to milk this for everything they can get. Biden and Harris are going to go out there. They're going to deliver January 6th speeches. And what are they going to say? Who the hell cares what they're going to say? The vast majority of the American people, they don't give a rat's ass about January 6th, 2021, what happened. Some hardcore left-wing Democrats do. The quote, assault on the democracy. Again, I'm not going to minimize it, but you had a bunch of people out there that got in over their skis, and the left turned it into way more than it was. They're having these hearings again to try to discredit Trump. They're going to get out there, Biden and Harris. They're going to give their purely political speeches. Like the lapdogs, the media is going to duly cover it. You think you'd wake up, see the news, every damn story is going to be about 1/6. I used to get a kick out of it. Brian Williams of MSDNC would do his show, and he'd try to equate January 6th with 9/11, and people would have none of it. 9/11 happens, you think about it, big difference. 3,000 people died, the greatest terrorist attack on the country. And these far left-wing radical kooks at MSNBC and CNN, etc., they try to make it sound like what happened on January 6th, 2021 is comparable. Folks, it's not. You know it. I know it. You know what it was? There was a riot, got out of hands. Shouldn't have ever got to that point. Everybody, they're trying to create this commission to blame Trump. What's new? Most Republicans don't care about it. Most Democrats don't care about it. The hardcore left-wingers do. They're going to have hearings. They're going to parade all these people up in front of Congress, the ones that will go. And again, what are the Democrats in Washington doing? They're focusing on what happened a year ago. People are past it. They know Biden's the president. He's going to be for 3 more years. Get over it and move on. But no, that's not what they want to do. Because they cannot accomplish anything, they want to continue to focus on these hotbed political issues. And it's going to happen again. So, folks, be prepared. Maybe not as much tomorrow, but on January 5th, January 6th, you're going to see the left-wing media flood you with reminders about what happened a year ago. Now, on Schaftlein Report, we covered the story. We actually had Joe Visconti, one of our correspondents at the time, in D.C. So we covered it live when it happened last year. And again, it is what it is. Got out of hand, shouldn't have happened. It did. But now Democrats are going to try to milk it for everything that they can. So be aware, folks, as things come up here over the next couple of days, you are going to be flooded with this garbage from January 6th. Now, let's move on a little bit to the economy. Did you notice when you went to the store over the holiday season, anybody buy meat? Anybody buy poultry? Man, those prices have skyrocketed. You know, I don't care whether you're on the West Coast, the center of the country, or down here in Florida on the East Coast. I've been all over the place. It's the same everywhere. You go out and buy a steak, buy poultry, man, those prices are through the roof. So what does the Biden administration do? True to form, as a Democrat, they blame the meat packing companies. Well, there's about 4 or 5 meat packing companies that account for about 70% of the production in this country. So what do? Biden, of course, blames them. It's not their fault. The companies are saying, hey, we've got a labor shortage. We've got to pay for higher gas prices. We got supply chain disruptions, and our costs have gone up. We have to pass it along. So what does Biden do? He takes $1 billion from the coronavirus relief bill passed last year, and he's going to allocate it towards trying to resolve some of these issues, expanding capacity for producers, meat packers. You know, I'll give them an E for effort. I don't know that allocating funds to an industry that's already free market capitalism is going to work. But again, this is a good example of an inept administration. You know, it's not the meat packers' fault they've had to raise prices. It's not the meat producers. Biden has a meeting with the farmers today. Okay, great. I'll give him again E for effort. He's trying to do something. But this is a classic example of supply demand. When you have increased demand, limited supply because of supply chain disruptions, you have the inflation pressures building. I mean, this is classic. When there's too much money chasing too little goods and services, price goes up. We've been talking about it for you for months, folks. So you're going to see them again. I think we'll pass the blame game on this. People don't want to hear that the meat producers are being blamed for this. They know better than that. But you go out and buy your beef, your poultry, I'm telling you something, you are going to pay through the nose. And you know, Americans love their beef, except for the green radicals, of course. So I don't think it's going to have any effect until the labor supply gets fixed. And there's no end in sight to that. We got a very tight labor market. Fuel prices show no signs of going down. We're seeing little bits of evidence of supply chains improving. Okay, that's happening. But these prices are high, and it looks like they're going to stay high for a while. So how that's going to affect the Biden administration? Probably about the same as, you know, the effect of gas prices, rent prices, price of everything else. You know, the investors on Wall Street are betting that Jerome Powell will not raise rates like he said he would. Well, I don't know if that's going to set us up for a fall or not, but I got to tell you, the year has started out on a really good note if you're a stock market investor. You know, the Dow Jones up almost 200 today, NASDAQ up almost 200. People are buying technology stocks again, thinking this year is going to be the same as last year. You know, all your big tech stocks, Apple, Amazon, Tesla, flying today, first trading day of the year. NASDAQ up over 1%, Dow up 0.5%, S&P up 0.5%. I think the market is saying, look, we don't believe the Fed's going to tighten like they've said they would. Well, if you believe the Fed will not tighten and the inflation is going to continue to remain hot, then you can buy stocks. If Powell sticks to his guns and raises rates, some of these valuations, folks, in April are going to come into question. But Apple today, for the first time, hit $3 trillion in market cap. First time that's ever happened. Think about that, folks. One company, Apple Computer, is now worth $3 trillion. That's astounding. It's very, you know, from a price to earnings multiple, trades up near 30 times earnings. That's historically pretty high. but demand for iPhones continues strong. So, we've never had $3 trillion market cap company before. This is the first. Early last year, Apple crossed $1 trillion for the first time. Now it's up to 3. So will this continue? Who knows? But right now, these valuations are high and going higher. The reason they're going higher is because of the belief on Wall Street that the Fed will not tighten as much as they said they would. Tesla is an example, up $140 a share today, now trading almost $1,200 a share. Closed the year trading about $1,040. And in December, traded as low as $900. So, it gives you Tesla came out with what their production numbers were, and they beat expectations. The stock still trades over 300 times earnings. Astounding. So, I'll get off the economics here for a minute, giving you good numbers there. Again, it's really interesting, though, folks. Record stock market. Unemployment back to 4.4%. But Biden is not getting any credit for any of that. Why? Because people fill up their gas tank every day, they buy groceries every day, and they pay rent. And if all those costs are going up, and the fact is, stock ownership in the country, is sort of concentrated. 70% of Americans aren't in the stock market. Some of them are through their retirement plans. They may not even realize it, but the bulk of Americans, close to 70%, are not involved in the stock market. So anyhow, he's not getting any credit for it. Now, let's talk about a couple things in polling and a couple other hot button issues here. No new polling on Biden's approval rating. Wouldn't expect it for another few days. But polling did come out. Hispanic Americans are leaving the Democrats in droves. They thought they would really focus on that, but his policies are just driving Hispanic voters away. It's now split evenly between Republicans and Democrats, who the Hispanic segment of our voting group supports. That is a 20-point fall, folks, from 1 year ago. So if you think about it, the coalition that the Democratic Party built to put Biden in the White House has basically crumbled. Hispanics are now split evenly with Republicans. African Americans are moving away from the Democratic Party because they see some of these crazy policies that the Democrats are putting out are not going to help them. Really, the Democratic Party, as we said earlier in the show, is boiling down to a group of far left-wing radicals, left-wing women and left-wing African-American women. It's really turning out. It's crazy that it's happening that way, but it's no surprise after what's happening with some of these policies. Now, let's translate that into something reality. Okay. I couldn't believe the headline when I saw it, folks. New York State is going to prioritize non-white people for distribution of COVID-19 treatments. And I read the story and I'm like, why? What do they, what do white people do to deserve this? And the theory coming out of New York's governor was, well, there's been discrimination in healthcare for a long time, so we have to make up for it. Okay, if you think that's a good way to do it, go ahead and knock yourself out. I think that's a reason why people are leaving New York. When you have people doing crazy policies like that, treatment should be on an as-needed basis. Doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, your age, your gender, whatever. The treatment should go to those that need it most, regardless of gender and race. That's a crazy policy. So if you want to live in a state where a governor governs like that, knock yourself out, live in New York. If you want to live in a state where people aren't doing crazy stuff like that, go to damn near any other state in the country. But that's what they're doing. That was the headline that came out of New York. Now, in some other crazy COVID news here, Ron DeSantis in Florida has basically asked the feds to allow the state of Florida to purchase monoclonal antibody treatments. Those are the treatments that help people with the disease. The federal government's basically cornered the market on this to distribute it, and the states can't buy it. So there's really a need here in Florida to the elderly population the state has, to get these monoclonal antibodies as a treatment, for the virus. They seem to be highly effective, and yet the government's got control. We'll see how DeSantis does on that. He's done a great job as governor in the state of Florida. His approval rating is very high. It's funny, over the holidays, they tried to criticize DeSantis. Where is he? What's going on? We haven't heard from him in a while. Well, he was doing something fairly important, like being with his wife who was being treated for breast cancer. And yet, what are these liberal goons doing? Buffoons, I call them. They're just so damn stupid. They go out and criticize him because he's not out in the forefront. Well, give the guy a break. It's over the holidays. He's trying to take care of his wife who has cancer. I think that's well deserved and well earned. So we're going to keep an eye on all that and these other stories. Let me close it out on a couple sports notes here. We had the college football playoffs. No surprise, the SEC dominated. And you're going to have Georgia and Alabama a week from today playing for the national championship. No surprise, they've been the two best teams in college football all year. And a lot of people across the country, they're that damn big bad SEC's at it again. Well, they turned out to be the two best teams. And boy, I hate to say it, but the two semifinal games weren't all that competitive. Cincinnati put up a fight. Michigan lasted a quarter, and that was about it. So the two best teams in college football are going to go at it next Monday. And in the NFL, I'm sure you all caught this. The bizarre, crazy behavior of wide receiver Antonio Brown, who used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The coach ordered him in for a play. He said he didn't want to come in. So the coach said, fine, go to the bench. The knucklehead takes off his gear, strips down of his top, and he's walking through the end zone with shirtless, throwing parts of his uniform up to the fans, and he basically quit. Never seen that in an NFL game where a guy just quits in the middle of a game. He actually had 5 passes thrown to him earlier in the game by Tom Brady. He caught 3 of them. So Antonio Brown's out of the NFL right now. Bizarre. I mean, a lot of teams didn't want to touch this guy, and now on national television, you can see why. I mean, it's the craziest damn thing you ever seen. The guy quits during a pro football game. Amazing. But anyhow, there's a lot of good things coming up. We got one more week in the NFL season, and we'll be off to the playoffs. We remain optimistic as we head into 2022. Folks, everything, if the tea leaves are right, and I think they're going to be, good things are going to happen to the country and the Republican Party in 2022. Anyhow, that's it for today, folks. We tried to cover it, starting off the new year on a positive note, and we'll do the best we can to keep it that way. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening to us today on our podcast, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We appreciate your support, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.